Alright, I'm convinced there's a Treyarch employee watching my videos. I make a video about how Zombies has never had a save and quit feature. They announce a save and quit feature a month later. I make a video about how the round cap is too easy at 256. They quadruple the round cap 2 days later. Pushing it up to 999 is not something I thought they would do so soon, but clearly the feedback from the community actually made a difference, which I'm glad about. In the same patch, they also made a change that no longer allowed you to get support drops while in a support drop, such as a chopper gunner or mangler injection. However, the upgrade of the cap to 999 opened up a whole new can of worms that turned the race to the first Black Ops 6 Max round into quite possibly the messiest race to a round that I've ever seen. But let's start off where we left off after the last video. November 1st, Treyarch drops the big patch pretty much out of nowhere. Some players were theorizing that the round cap would be increased, but no one knew for sure or when, so it was a big surprise when they did it. But this presented a new problem that the world record community had never encountered before: the fact that games could be saved across patches. A new patch wouldn't nuke your save file, you would just be able to continue under the new rules. And this already presented some problems as to legitimacy. For example, the official KHF, our MVP from the last video, already had a Liberty Falls game saved at 256 when the patch dropped. This meant that he was automatically ahead of everyone else since he was already at the pre-patch max round. And it meant that he had boatloads of salvage from being able to get it from manglers in a mangler injection before the patch. Now, this didn't end up disqualifying his run. The community decided it would be pointless to invalidate games after every patch, since Treyarch ended up patching the game every few days. But it did mean that the more you played earlier, the more pre-patch advantages you could use. So from the beginning, the race was already a sprint, not a marathon. From the first patch, KHF immediately set out on seeing how far he could get. But as players threw time predictions around in their heads, Black Ops 6 games suddenly morphed from cute little 10-hour speedruns to monstrous 150 to 200-hour grinds. Yep, since the rounds do scale slowly, they would get longer and longer as you went on, meaning 256 was nowhere even close to being a quarter of the way through the game. This meant playing 10 to 12-hour days for potentially weeks to be the first to get the new max round. So players who felt they could do it cleared their schedules and strapped in for the longest sprint in Call of Duty Zombies history. Immediately, everyone hopped on Liberty Falls to catch up to KHF. Since Liberty is the faster map compared to Terminus, it was the obvious choice from the outset to grind to 999. Players mostly used the original 256 strategy of camping by the bowling alley with the door to spawn closed, and they figured out very quickly how to combat the patch salvage and support drop rate. Since you couldn't get support drops in a mangler injection, players started using the Void Sheath augment for the Ether Shroud field upgrade. This would allow you to extend your invisibility from zombies by getting kills while in Ether Shroud. Most players used the knife for this, as it was actually very powerful when fully upgraded. But the main idea of using this was to get the jet gun to cool down, and with an augment for melee macchiato, you could actually replenish extra ammo in the jet gun with every kill as well. When players got low on salvage, they would go to the bank rooftop in the middle of the map, because there was a better bottleneck there to kill zombies with the jet gun, and a more open area to work with. KHF was in the lead for a while, achieving the first 300, but his first controversy would come at round 325. Barely a day into the race, KHF took it down from throwing a decoy and then accidentally destroying it. He decided to force the game to save and quit to erase the down and restart the round. This would end up creating a lot of controversy for the rest of the game as to whether it should be considered legit or not. While this was a known exploit, it was definitely frowned upon, as otherwise you could just abuse it to never die. KHF was upfront about it, apologizing for it, and explaining that he probably wouldn't have died anyway from that down, as he could have crawled right to the crafting table. But regardless of who agreed with him, KHF continued on, remaining firmly in the lead. He managed to consistently play about 50 rounds per day, hitting the first 400 on November 2nd, the first 500 on November 4th, 600 November 6th, and 700 November 8th. Now, despite the numbers closing in, since the rounds got longer, in terms of in-game time, 700 is only about halfway to 999. And true to players' original estimations, it had taken KHF almost 90 hours to reach this point. However, this is where the race started going off the rails. Right after hitting 700 in front of 500 viewers, KHF's internet crashed. No big deal, his game saved and he just couldn't stream or play temporarily. At least, that's what he thought. He waited a few hours for his internet to come back. Nothing. He waited until the next day. Still nothing. After 30 hours, KHF began to realize that somebody was DDoSing him and tanking his internet, and he couldn't do anything about it because he had a static IP address. I know, imagine DDoSing someone in 2024. Whether this person was angry about KHF exploiting his down on 325 or just wanted someone else to win the race is unclear, as no one ever came forward about it. But either way, having no internet and trying to race on an online-only game is not a great combination. KHF was not going down without a fight though, so he set up his phone hotspot and began to play off that. Now he was trying to catch up to the player who had passed him on November 9th when he was unable to play. British player Mystic. Mystic was also on the grind, playing sessions up to 11 hours and sleeping minimally for over a week since the race had started. He had been about 40 to 50 rounds behind KHF, but surpassed him due to KHF being unable to play. During November 9th and 10th, KHF was consistently about 10 rounds behind Mystic, but playing for 35 to 40 rounds at a time and taking 2-hour sleepers in between, just barely managed to put him back in the lead. KHF also achieved the first 1 million zombie kills calling card, Reaper of the Undead, on 782. Mystic reached the first 800, and when he went to sleep on 815, KHF crept by him to 818. But then, something even worse would happen. On November 11th, KHF set himself up to play all night, testing his hotspot internet multiple times before starting his next session. He was now almost 115 hours into the game, and the goal was finally coming back in sight despite the setbacks. But barely a minute into loading his save again, everything in the game froze. KHF waited a few moments for something to happen, but nothing did, until the game kicked him out with an error message. When he went back, he hesitated to load his game back up, and his save file and all his progress literally disappeared in front of his eyes. Bewildered, he jumped into a game of Terminus to try to make sense of what had just happened with his connection, and the same thing happened on round 6. This pretty much confirmed that his game ended due to poor internet connection due to the DDoS. KHF conceded the race to Mystic, who is now on 825. Mystic actually didn't even know that KHF had caught up to him, but now it didn't matter because he was firmly situated in the lead. In second place was a Canadian player named Insomnia Virus in the 770s, and behind him American Drain BB in the 650s. And Mystic was playing so much per day that neither of them were likely to catch up. Mystic would hit the first 900 the next day on November 12th, reaching almost 135 hours of gameplay, and closing in on the global achievement and pulling in hundreds of viewers. But once again, the next day, on November 13th, the race would shift. Out of nowhere, on round 926, Mystic's game would do this.
And the game crashed. We should have a save, it should be okay.
He reloaded the game, and luckily his save file was still there. He started it up and continued with a sigh of relief, only for the game to freeze again 60 seconds later. And this time, since his save file had been deleted upon loading back into the game, he had nothing to fall back on.
Oh no. Oh, but that's GG. Mint.
Like that, in the blink of an eye, his save was gone and his game was over, almost 90% of the way to the max round. Disappointing that another racer was out over a technical glitch, but it was no surprise. With the massive extension in game time, Black Ops 6 games had become increasingly unstable and touchy. Take Official Decal for instance, who lost a round 500 plus game because he got stuck in a mangler injection and got AFK kicked from the game.
I got it again, bro! I can't get out. And I can't save and quit because I just got back. What? What just happened? Kicked for inactivity! Bro, I better have my save game, bro. Bro, I better have my save game, bro. How do I get kicked out for inactivity? Bro, I'm there. Oh! My God!
Or Japanese player Pinot Noir, who also got AFK kicked on a vermin round, despite him actively looking around and shooting the spiders. But this clearing of the battleground left Insomnia Virus in the lead in the 850s. Insomnia was playing extremely consistently, taking no downs, and playing at least 12 hours a day, staying sane by interacting with his chat, which at this point in the race was filled with thousands of people. However, someone else was rocketing toward Insomnia, also playing more per day than a full-time full-time job, but he was saving a lot more in-game time, and this was an American player named Trickshots. Trick had started his game 5 days late, when Insomnia was already almost on 500, but on November 13th, when the lead dropped into Insomnia's lap, Trick was almost on 700, less than 200 rounds behind. This was because he had taken a step back and devised a way to play much faster than everyone else. Instead of using the Ether Shroud method to wait for the jet gun to recharge, Trick would sit by the railing and use the jet gun continuously by tapping the fire button, which, when done right, made it overheat much slower and still killed a massive amount of zombies. Trick had already shot past Drain the day before, who was in the early 700s but had played Bank Roof only until that point, and so he was nowhere near Trick's times. Trick secured second place and was now breathing down Insomnia's neck. To give you an idea of how much time he was saving, Insomnia's round 800 time was 117 hours 46 minutes, while Trick's was 90 hours and 10 minutes, a difference of almost 28 hours. By this time, it had become pretty common for players to actually skip Vermin rounds, because the time scaling on Vermin rounds is completely broken. While regular rounds were taking barely 10 minutes at this point in the game, Vermin rounds were taking over 30 minutes because the Vermin spawned slow and a couple at a time. To offset this, players would sometimes save and quit on Vermin rounds and reload into the game. Because saving and quitting simply creates a new instance of your game with all your assets at the time of pausing saved, the game has no idea where the cycle of Vermin rounds is, so it just picks randomly as to whether it's a Vermin round again, meaning it's a 1 in 6 chance. Pretty good chances that it won't be. However, when that chance did hit, obviously players had to play out the round, and hope they didn't fall asleep mindlessly tapping the jet gun. Also, there was always the chance that your connection could go out at any time, and if that happened right after you saved and quit and reloaded, you risked losing your game. For this reason, some players played more Vermin rounds than others. But it wouldn't be long at all until another surprise came around the corner. On November 15th, secret intel was revealed that there was actually someone ahead of Insomnia. In fact, there was someone about to hit the first 999 that night. It didn't quite come out of nowhere. An Australian player named Odessa had been scaling the leaderboard since the race started, but he wasn't streaming much, just giving random updates in Drain and KHF's chats, although he was clearly knowledgeable about the ins and outs of the strategy. On the night of November 15th, Odessa revealed that he had hit 999 in a screenshot. This meant the race for 999 was over, right? Once the footage came out anyway. Well, sadly, there was no footage, because Odessa didn't record the game, because he just didn't care to. Odessa was a player who actually came from MW3 multiplayer, and had started on the 999 race because everyone else was racing and he just wanted it as a personal achievement. And while this was exactly that, a personal achievement, at the same time, no one could corroborate that he had played legit, even though he showed intimate knowledge of the map and strategy. And the Zombies community has literally never been one to award a world record off a single screenshot alone. So as far as most were concerned, the race was still on. At this point, Insomnia and Trick were on the home stretch, both above 900, but it was looking less and less likely that Trick was going to catch up. He had simply started too late. Insomnia was dedicated to getting the first 999, and when he began his final stream in the 980s, Trick conceded the race in the 930s. And as November 16th came to a close, Insomnia played the last few rounds until this happened in front of 20,000 viewers.
At this late of a time, we still have 20. Guys, this is it! Respect, let's go! www in chat, let's freaking go! Woo! Let's go! Flawless! 999, boys. Let's freaking go, boys.
He then went on to complete the Easter egg boss fight on round 999, ending his game with a bang after 16 days in game and almost 171 hours of game time. His dedication had paid off. He had achieved the first official 999. 2 days later, on November 18th, Trick would go on to achieve the second 999 in 136 hours.
Let's go, baby. Let's go. Let's go, chat. There she is.
November 19th, Drain BB with the third in 142.5 hours. And November 20th, Official Decal with the fourth in 139.5 hours.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Two Stroke Max donated $100.
On November 29th, Japanese player Chihiro also achieved 999, although he did not time his game. At the time of recording this, these are the only 999s on the map. Now, I know what you're thinking. What the hell has been going on Terminus this entire time? Well, not much. There were not nearly as many games going on there as there were on Liberty. After the 256 limit was increased, a player named Knowles got to round 405 on November 7th and died due to running out of salvage. The next player to pass him would be KXG124, who experimented more with different ways to farm salvage and different ways to save it, such as using the tentacle traps in combination with the Sallies and Mangler injection. The strategy on Terminus has changed around a few times, but the idea is that you want to camp in the Easter egg lab or the elevator to pass the round, and then farm score streaks off the Manglers with the Beam Smasher and Sallies at the end of the round. However, salvage economy was much more of a problem here than it was on Liberty. Keg passed Knowles' record on November 13th and ended up beating the boss fight on round 420, although after that his game crashed and he got sent back 26 rounds to his previous save. This error would occur again on round 451, ending his game on November 16th, the same day the first 999 was achieved. On November 21st, KHF would pass his record and achieve the first 500 the day after. At the time of writing this, both KHF and Official Decal are on 800 plus, with Decal just scraping by to secure the lead. To see anything like the Liberty Falls race, I think we'll have to wait until the first DLC comes out on December 5th, because Black Ops 6 High Round Racing has been a completely unique experience from any other before it. There has never been a competition quite like this where everyone was grinding neck and neck to be the first to the max round, and where everyone was also still just learning the map and coming up with their own optimizations in real time. But while it was fun to watch, what became so disappointing about it was how none of the contenders for the first 999 lost their games due to anything skill-based or within their control. It was all crashes, connection issues, or game-breaking bugs. When the race is based around getting lucky with these factors and sleeping the least, especially when the game is well over 130 hours, it's no wonder most are far too burnt out to play Terminus. No shade to the grinders who actually pulled it off. If nothing else, the Liberty 999 race showed the absolute tenacity and dedication of these players, even though playing the map itself became tedious. All I hope for is that DLC 1 has a much more exciting race to 999 than the base maps did. And maybe I'm thinking optimistically here, but it sounds like it just might. I'm Wonderful, and this has been the complete world record history of Liberty Falls. Thanks for watching.